I'm Chrissy from Up the Windy Lane. Welcome to my channel and to my greenhouse. It's kind of a mess right now, but I do have some plants in here. But I thought we would go over April from the Kitchen Garden, this book that I got from Alan Buckingham a while back. Kind of been doing a month by month of what he suggests and just some things to do each month in the garden and prepare. And some things I do, some things I had no idea. And some are giving me some good ideas. So let's go ahead and go through some of this, and I will show you some of the things that I have going and some of the things that I might just do that they suggest. All right, so let's go on out here. Got some pretty little violets growing. I have some yarrow. I believe I moved this out of a bed. And then I've got some comfrey. This is just a little side note. Comfrey started over here. It is now here and back here. So it moves, definitely spreads out. Man, I am telling you, with these nice warmer temperatures that we've been having, I just want to plant all the things. But you can tell my beds are really mostly bare. And I'm going to tell you a little sad story here in a little bit, but I'm kind of sad about some of my plants that did not make it through the last couple of weeks or so. But let's talk about April just a little bit. And because, you know, this is a time here, I don't know about where you are, we're in zone 6B. The temperatures start getting warmer, and I just want to plant all the things. I want to start all the seeds. I want to put all my seedlings out. You just can't do that all the time unless you have a milder spring, winter. We just kind of have really weird weather where we live here in Southern Illinois. It's just, you just never know from one day to the next. We're talking about April. So right now it's April 7th actually. So we're just through the first week of April. It's almost Easter, which is kind of crazy. This year's kind of flying by. But I've had my very first asparagus come up. I wondered if it was dead actually because nothing was coming up. So actually there's two. There's two right there. There's some more peeking up through the leaves. To be honest, I was really concerned because we did have some really cold temperatures this winter, below zero for a little bit, that we don't normally have, and I was kind of worried that these all died, but I guess they didn't, so that's a good thing that they're coming up. But in April you can actually harvest the first asparagus of the year, and it looks like I will be doing that. So there's one or so that are probably the next day or two. I'm probably going to be able to pick some of those, so that's really cool. I don't really like cooked asparagus, but I really like to eat it raw, so sometimes I'll just come out here and like break off a piece and just eat it while I'm doing other things. You can sow outside in April, which I will probably be doing in a week or so. Our last frost date is approximately the middle of April, so you need to check and see when your last frost date is, kind of when, and look and kind of see when, you know, temperatures, the soil has to be warm enough for the seeds to germinate. And so if you plant things too early, they're not going to germinate, they're just going to sit there. It does say that you can plant a second crop of potatoes. I've never planted potatoes this late, I don't think. Maybe once, and but I do have potatoes planted, and nothing's come up yet, so we're gonna see how that works out. If you plant early potatoes, it would be a good time to hill those up. Mine have not came up yet. Keep preparing the beds. Some people cover their beds to warm everything up. I have not done that, and it might be a good idea. We need to get some, you know, better systems maybe in place. I don't know, but if you're doing what you're doing is working, I mean, keep doing that is my thought. Some of the vegetables for April, I mean, if you already planted stuff, you could be having green onions, you could have salad leaves, early cabbages, you could have spinach, obviously you can have asparagus. My asparagus is coming up. Lettuces, things that you planted maybe over winter might be up, and you might still be harvesting. That would be awesome. I don't have anything that I'm still harvesting. So some of the things you can sow in April. Some of the things you can sow in April are your broccoli, your cabbages, your brassicas, carrots, beets, which I did put carrots. I do have carrots and radishes, I believe, down, and beets. I need to check on the beets. You can sow outdoors. You can sow these outdoors, but you just really have to be careful. Mine, I don't know that I'll put mine out maybe towards the very end of April. Corn. Okay, so I have never started corn indoors. I would be curious if you have started corn indoors and how it turned out, because I have seen plants for sale, which I thought was odd. I just never have seen that. Eggplants, we don't really eat eggplants, but I was just kind of wanting to grow some. I have some seed for small ones that did well a couple years ago. Tomatoes, I do have those. Some of those have not done very well, but I will be putting those out, of course, much later after there is no chance of frost. Some of the other things are herbs. You can keep putting those out. I have some started and I've been putting some out. I'm really excited about all the herb seeds I got this past year. Green beans, runner beans, I'm going to be putting those out. I'm really going to try to plant some of those the spotted beans, the 1500 I think they're called, beans, cow beans or something like that. I'm going to plant some more of those. Those did really well. Leeks and onions. I have some onions planted in the greenhouse and they are barely coming up, so we're going to see how those work. I believe they're bunching onions. And I do not plant leeks, but you could plant leafy vegetables. Kale, I have kale coming up in the greenhouse. So some of the other things you can do, like lots of lettuces. If you sow, they recommend that if you sow your melons and things like that outside, that you cover them. I'm probably not gonna, I don't know when I'm gonna plant mine, but I did bring home a bunch of empty gallon jugs. So potentially I could plant those and put a little gallon jug greenhouse over the top of them. So I might experiment a little bit, put some seeds out and put little greenhouses over the top of them. So that might be a good idea, a way to get a kind of ahead on some things. Vegetables you can sow outside would be like carrots, Brussels sprouts, brassicas, cabbages, peas. I have sugar snap peas going right now, which are up as long as the chickens leave them alone. I've got stuff covered up so the chickens won't bother them. I bought this new fence and they are up, but there are like 2 or 3 of them that get out every single day. And I can't figure out what they're doing. They have to be flying over because I've checked for holes and everything else. I don't know. So my kohlrabi I'm really disappointed in, because a couple years ago I had kohlrabi at this, well, not at this time, but about a week. Middle of April, I had kohlrabi. So that's another thing you can sow outside. All the cold weather crops, you can put those out. Just make sure that you check your frost and they're not frost sensitive. But I think that's what has happened here. I think between the chickens and just the weird temperatures that we've been having, I was a little too early, a little too soon putting some stuff out, and they did not make it. So I'm going to be replanting those. Now my zucchini, my pumpkins and squashes and stuff like that, I just wait till it's warmer. Normally, I don't know, I may try sowing some indoors. That is coming up on my schedule that I have this month. So I have lots of stuff coming up next week on that schedule that I did for organizing my seeds for plantings. That's going to be interesting. I don't know where I'm going to put them all. I'm thinking they're going to have to go in the greenhouse or something. I don't know. But I did learn a good lesson this year on soil, which I should have known but didn't. Or, well, I knew, but I should have listened, I guess I should say. Use sterilized soil. Don't use soil that you had from last year. Get new soil if you're going to start seeds inside. If you want to go soilless or whatever it might be. But I have had I don't know. I can tell a difference in the plants the seeds that I started in the soil from, like, I just in a hurry and I didn't have soil and I wanted to get my seeds started. And I planted in some that I had from last year. That was just not a good idea. So I think I'm just going to take it and dump it in the beds and let Mother Nature like clean it and whatever. That was a little tip. You may not have done what I did, but I did, and kind of regretting that now. So preparing a seed bed. So it's just, you just want to make sure it's, not like all clumpy, and you want to make sure the soil is warm enough. You want to make sure your soil is fed, that you have good soil. Now, this is one thing that I hadn't thought about. I don't actually, if the ground is dry and I'm sowing seeds, I don't usually water it first and then plant and then cover it with dry. I usually plant my seeds and then water it. But this does make sense, because then the seed stays where I want it to and I don't have to worry about it moving. When you water it and it doesn't absorb in and you think maybe the seeds are moving. Now, this is a really good idea. So if your soil is really wet and you're afraid your seeds might get waterlogged or rot, you can put down a little bit of sand, then put your seeds on there and then cover it up. So this is kind of a good tip. Kind of tips on sowing when dry and sowing when wet. So it's a really good idea. I hadn't really thought about that before. One of the escapees coming over here checking stuff out. All right, so we talked about what we can plant in April. Of course, the asparagus is coming up. So if you have asparagus crowns, then those need to be put in by the end of the month. fruit trees and fruit bushes. It says it's too late now to plant bare root trees and bushes since they're no longer dormant, which makes sense because anything bare root that I've gotten is usually shipped out in the winter. And then when I buy trees from, my local Rural King or whatever like that, they're not bare root. So they have those now. I'm trying to stay away because I'm going to end up buying something. I just know it. Of course, your herbs can be planted out now as long as they're not frost sensitive, for me anyways. Kohlrabi and your summer radishes is time to if you have those started, would be to harden them off. And that's what I did not do very well this year. I just got in too big of a hurry. You can do your onions depending on how long or what kind you plant. Potatoes, of course, as we mentioned earlier, peas and broad beans. So here's some jobs in April that you could be doing if you, like me, and you don't have a lot to harvest. So my harvesting is pretty slim. I'm going to be harvesting some asparagus, but that's about it. I could be harvesting of some of these comfrey leaves. And of course, I'll be harvesting some of my asparagus soon. I do have a little bit of time coming up. I don't have any potatoes coming up yet that I see. Horseradish is coming up. I have not actually harvested any of this root yet, and I've got to look into that. I actually haven't looked to see if I can use the leaves. It always smells good though. Here you can see, can't harvest these yet, but you might be able to see a little bit of green. I had to cover these because I had them covered with those back there, and they started coming up, so I put these over it with the nets, hoping the chickens will stay out of it. Now, one thing that's coming up really well are my radishes. They came up like really fast. I really don't want to thin these out. I think I'm going to need to, but this has a net over it as well, or these would be gone. Chickens, they can just decimate something super fast. It is crazy how fast they can do that. This is one of the beds I was talking about. It does have a little bit of thyme in it, and there was actually kale planted all around this. And I see one. Oh, actually there's one left. Might be one. I don't see any more in there. So maybe that one was disguised and they didn't get it. Alright, jobs for April. So we talked about continuing to prepare beds. So you could continue. I could have these covered up, warming up the soil. And I can, with those radishes, for instance, thin those out. I could thin those out. I probably will need to. You can harden off your young plants, which I didn't do a very good job of this year. I do have some in the greenhouse because I ran out of room inside, and they've kind of hardened off a little bit. I like to bring them in the greenhouse, and then it's a little bit warmer in there. It does not stay though warm at night, and that's probably what caused some of them to not do so well. But I can open the windows and the breeze kind of blows through, so it kind of hardens them off, gives them that natural feel of being outside. Of course, just water if you're not getting enough rain, which we've been getting rain, so I haven't had to worry about that. Weeding, I have noticed I'm getting stuff coming up in some of these new beds. I'm really gonna have to pay attention and see what it is. I mean, I could totally have stuff coming up that's food because of the compost, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to pay attention and see what it is, and if it's not, then pull it out. But I can see lots of green coming up, so hopefully it's not all those morning glories that I had, so we'll hope not. Alright, so you may have to protect against frost. Plants that you have out, I know we have frost until at least the middle of April, sometimes later, so we'll have to really pay attention. You might be healing up potatoes, and that would be so cool if I was doing that. Pea supports. I do have my pea support already, this one right here. I actually have peas on both sides now. These came up. I planted these a week or so later than these over here. So I have these peas coming up along with some beets as well. These are kind of sporadic out here. I'm not sure. They either didn't sow very good or the chickens have been getting down in there. Alright, so if you plan to do some climbing beans, you can build some supports. You can use cane, which actually I have some cane poles here, but I built 3 of these. I really like these so far. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to put some beans, but I think I'm also going to put some flowers on it as well that I started from seed. I don't have rhubarb. This says to remove the claws over from the rhubarb. I don't have that, which is something that I would really like to plant. You just, I guess, continue cleaning up and preparing, for this warmer weather that's hopefully going to be here soon. So another thing you can do is propagate herbs, which I didn't realize that some of them I knew you could propagate and you could divide. So this is the time to be doing that because most of them have come up. Like my lemon balm is up and my bee balm is up. And I'm pretty sure, well, I went ahead and bought new rosemary. Once this plant gets big enough, I'm just gonna have to start new ones and have them as backup, because those did, a big one that I had did not make it, I don't believe. Cover and feed strawberries, which I haven't done. Mine are still bare roots, so they haven't actually came up, so I think they'll be okay. I'm like losing my spot here. I need to check on those today while I'm out here though. But the only thing about that is I have to pick the strawberries, the blooms off this year. That way that they grow more roots, and that way they are not just like surface roots. So I do have to remember to do that with my peonies as well that I bought. I really want them to bloom at least. I want to see one bloom, but I don't know. I'll wait and see what I'm going to do. So this is time to feed your blackberries, your black currants, your raspberries, and all that kind of stuff to make sure there's not weeds coming up in the canes, which I need to check mine and see. There are a few pests in April, believe it or not. We do have like slugs and snails that come out. We have flea beetles. We have a few things, you know, that can get on the fruit trees and such like that as well. You can also check for aphids on your fruit trees. I need to probably do that. It says to net your gooseberries. I used to love gooseberries. My grandma had a bush, and she never really, I don't remember her ever doing that, but I don't think we waited until they were ripe. I think we ate them sour, so maybe that's why. But I bought, I believe, 6 to 8 gooseberry bushes last year. 2 of them I think survived. I'm pretty sure I planted them in a spot that I kind of forgot about them and I didn't water them enough, so 2 of them are still alive because they're green. The other ones are not, so I'm gonna have to see which ones both of them are. One of them had a label and the other one did not, so I do have to check that. But I think I got 3 or 4 of each kind and only one of them made it, so yeah, there's that. I do want to say though, I did buy a fig tree that was for my zone last year from Burpee, and I'm pretty sure it has not made it through the winter, and I emailed them and they are going, because they're out of them, they're sold out, they're going to give me a store credit, and that way I can get another one. So that was a really quick response, so yay for Burpee. I'm really excited about that. I'm gonna see what else I can buy and keep getting these, you know, you get those catalogs with all the pretty stuff in them. I'm wanting to buy like all the flowers and all the stuff, but I just can't. Don't need to do that. Anyways, so that's all for April. I've just got some things to do. I'm just trying to kind of stay on top of things so I'm not so overwhelmed and planning out. That's why I organized my seeds this year. I was kind of looking back at other videos, and that's the reason why I knew I had kohlrabi 2 years ago in the middle of April, and I don't have any coming up right now. I didn't do a very good job on that, but I hope you enjoyed this video, maybe give you some tips, and if you have any tips for me or anyone else, leave them in the comments below. I plan to try to keep doing this every month, kind of go through this book. It kind of helps me to stay accountable and to read the book and kind of get some ideas and some tips that I might not have known about or might help. So be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, don't forget to be lovely lights today.